Welcome. I'm Peggy. Thank you for letting us be a part of your day. And as always, we try to give you good information about what's happening around us, how we can benefit for ourselves and our families. And the Peggy Denny Show is different every day, as you know, if you watch very often. And we love sharing those good recipes with you and the people we enjoy. And today, we have something very special to talk about, and it affects each and every one of us here in the South Carolina and the states surrounding us, and perhaps our whole nation. And I want to introduce two people. Michelle Wiles is here. She is an upstate activist. Now, I'm not sure I've ever had people on my show that just say, I'm an activist. We're going to find out. And next to her is Jim McMillan. And Jim is also an activist. And you're here on behalf of something called Secure Spartanburg County, South Carolina.
Correct.
But if you don't live in Spartanburg, if you're, don't turn us off, because this affects all of us. And why they say Secure Spartanburg and leave everybody else out, I couldn't quite figure that out.
Well, we are a spinoff of Secure South Carolina.
Okay.
So we thought that if we could pare this down to a little smaller group, it would be more manageable. And because we're in Spartanburg, you should be concerned if you live in Greenville or Cherokee or Union or any other county.
Anywhere around. Okay.
That's correct, because
right.
If you have immigrants come into, unvetted immigrants coming in to a county, once they become citizens, they're free to travel anywhere in this country that they want to. So just because their point of entry is into one particular county, whether it be Union or wherever, it's a concern to every citizen in this county, in this state, and in this country.
Okay, so what you really want to talk about is resettlement.
We want to talk about...
And the people who are coming in here, and we have no idea who they are or what their plan is, so to speak. Some of them probably desperately are looking for just a safe place to be with their families. But you always have to think, what about the one in the midst who wants to do something different?
Right.
Yeah.
We have what's called the Refugee Resettlement Program here in South Carolina coming here, and every county is currently subject to having unvetted refugees from the Middle East come and settle into the state of South Carolina. And so when we were talking just a minute ago about Secure South Carolina, we have started a Facebook page called Secure Spartanburg County, because all the counties need to participate in understanding what this means for their county. Unvetted refugees are not safe.
Okay, so many of us have been given this kind of bill of goods that, well, we're mostly Christians. We mostly want to help people who need and deserve help, right?
Right.
But underneath all of that, there's a problem.
You hit on something a few minutes ago. You said there may be some good ones and some bad ones. Well, we have to get it right. Our security, our FBI, we have to get it right every time. They only have to get it right one time. They put one terrorist in here. We let it get by us. We can't allow that. It has to be handled every time, every situation. Now, the 9/11 Commission, the opening statement in there was something like, if they're not here, they can't attack us from within. Now, that sounds kind of like pretty elementary, but if you think about it, if they're not here, they can't attack us from within. And we know that they are about 25%, and Michelle can speak to this, around 25% of the refugees coming in are affiliated to terrorist organizations. But we also know that these Middle Eastern people, and I'm going to say the Muslims in particular, they have a propensity toward being radicalized. They all read the same Quran, and they all understand it the same way. So if they're not radicalized now, they do have that propensity toward likelihood of becoming radicalized at some point. And Michelle can tell you about an instance she had with talking with someone about which side would you take.
Okay.
Right. I was at a local business here in, actually it was in Greenville County. And I had walked in and we had been chatting, and through this conversation I said, can I ask you where you're from? And he said, Iran. I said, really? I said, are you Muslim? And he said, yes. And we went through this long conversation of Christians and Muslims, and he said, you know, I really don't read the Quran, and I'm really not, you know, a participating Muslim. And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, if there were a conflict here in the United States between Muslim and someone that is non-Muslim, whether you're Christian or secular, Buddha, whatever, whose side would you take? And he said, well, I'm a Muslim. Of course I'd take the Muslim side. And so it showed me that although he loves being in America, he's first a Muslim. He's not first an American, he's first his religion.
Now, am I reading this right? That we are having people come to South Carolina and perhaps to surrounding states as well, and we don't know who they are, or we're just letting them in.
You're right.
And we don't know what their purpose is or what abilities they can bring. I mean, many of them don't speak English, I guess. How can they participate in our society?
Well, it's estimated that for each refugee that's brought here, by the way, the United Nations picks them, and they work through organizations such as World Relief, Lutheran Services, and there's a bunch of them that participate in this, and they do make money off of that. But it's estimated that it would cost about $20,000 to $30,000 per refugee per year. So the cost to keep 200 refugees in their native land area that we could give to them over there, set up very safe camps where they have food and water and all the things that they need. We can service 200 refugees for the same amount of money that we spend on one per year.
Now, we are letting these people in every day.
Every day.
And do we have any idea how many, or what their purpose is, or where they go? They're not able to assimilate, are they, into our world?
No, they colonize. They don't assimilate into our
Okay, so
culture.
they stay to themselves.
And
That's right.
correct. They stay to themselves. They don't try to become a part of our culture. Not all of them. There's some that do.
Yeah.
So you can't just throw a blanket out there and say that all of them, but most of them colonize, and they don't try to assimilate. They come here to take advantage of our generosity, for one thing. They don't come here to become an American or to become part of our society. They come here to try to change America into something that they came from.
You've said the word right there.
They do.
The purpose is different. Most people who came to this country, whether it's our ancestors or whatever, they came for an opportunity, for a better life, for making a career and earning a living and making a better life for themselves and their family. And that goes way back to the beginning of this country. But these people are coming for a different purpose. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they're coming for a different purpose. They're coming, one, for our generosity, to take advantage of America and what we have to offer. And two, they're coming to change our culture into what they're coming from, not to become part of our culture. Now, I grew up in the 60s, but you know, if you grew up in the 60s, you say, I survived the 60s, you know. So I remember America with the Chevrolets and apple pie and walking the streets and feeling safe. You can't feel safe in this country any longer. If you go downtown, at night you want to be in a group of people. You want to have a weapon with you. You want to know at least a little bit of self-defense, or be with someone who does, because it is a security issue now. Our citizenry is not safe any longer. Peggy, I became introduced to the Muslim community and religion about 3 years ago. I'll be honest with you, I had never seen a Muslim. And Michelle and I took her children down to Stone Mountain, and we went to the light show that night. And we were sitting there, and they played the national anthem. And behind us was 5 or 6 Muslims. When we stood up, they didn't stand up for our national anthem. They sat there and laughed and giggled and talked while we stood there and were being reverent. You see, that is our national anthem. And when they come here, I would suppose that they swore allegiance to this country when they became citizens here. But that's not what they want to do. They want to take the best of our Constitution and bring Sharia law and Islam and mold them together.
Who is allowing this to happen? Is it our government? Is it our president? Who is allowing the doors to just be swung wide open? And do we not have any control over what's going on? And we have to go to a break, but if you can answer that, please do.
Sure. I'll answer a little bit of it and let Michelle have some of it. You have the asylum program where they come here. If they get to our shores, then they can apply for citizenship.
Yeah.
And they get it. And then you have the refugee program where the UN picks who gets to come here, and we take them in and give them citizenship. Now, I don't pretend to be a pundit or an attorney and know all the ins and outs how that works. But we do know, because we have talked to people in the intelligence community who says they're not vetted, and they can't be vetted. But the people that are bringing them here are, yes, our government. And the way I understand it, if you're going to come into South Carolina through this refugee relief program, you have to be invited into the state. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're fighting. We're saying that we don't want them here because they're not vetted. Until we know who they are, why they're here, then we don't think it's safe to have them here.
Okay.
We talked about this earlier. We are one of the most generous countries in the world. The most generous country in the world. But, you know, sometimes you have to turn your generosity into your own people, and you have to take care of your own if there's going to be America tomorrow. So we turn our generosity somewhat in toward our own people today, is what we think. You know, in South Carolina, if I can have one more second, about 25% of our children live under the poverty line.
I know we have problems.
And we have very high unemployment rate right now. And when these refugees come in, these illegal aliens come in, they're taking money out of the pockets of our children and our families right here in South Carolina. We need to be taking care of our veterans.
Yes.
We need to be taking care of our poor.
There's something that's called Charity Begins at Home. Now, we're going to go to a quick break. We will have some information for you. We'll have a phone number, and so that you can find out more about this. But it's something we need to be aware of. We'll be right back.